Beautiful. We appreciate it, as always. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Foley,
Here.
Trustee Lappin,
Here.
Clerk Palovich, here. Treasurer Ellery Summers, here. Trustee Kroll,
Here.
Trustee Dunkel,
Here.
Supervisor Skibby.
Here. We come to the point of the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections to the agenda as presented?
I'd like to add something, the ladder truck, the fire department ladder truck.
Okay. We'll add that, and I also have, we'll just keep it in a numerical linear form. Let's go with new business number 9. I have a request to postpone our June 22nd meeting to June 29th, which is the subsequent Monday. My son is having surgery. And on new item number 10 will be fire department ladder truck. Are there any other additions, corrections?
What was yours again?
Mine is a request to postpone the 22nd date to the 29th. Or you guys could add, and Michelle could run the meeting.
I vote for that. That's a good one.
It's not the point of the motion. At this point in time, is there, hearing no other corrections, additions, retractions? I'll entertain a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion passed. This is the first opportunity for public comment. Seeing no members of the public, only press. We will, good to have you. Thank you for the record. Glad to be here. Never gonna hear. And Bruce, we have you online, correct?
That's correct.
Are there any other members of the press or public by telephone or by video? Hearing none, we will move forward to payment of the bills. Is there a motion to make payment of the bills? We have a motion on the table to make payment of the bills. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers, yes. Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel,
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving to the minutes of May 26, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of May 26, 2020. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. On to correspondence. We have in our correspondence packet, we have a letter of a thank you letter from Alpena Public Schools in terms of providing a Wi-Fi internet access for students, faculty, and parents during the COVID phase, and which is still available for them for utilization. And also 2 items from the County Road Commission, the meeting minutes of May 5th, and a road report of April 27th through May 25th. I'll entertain a motion to receive and file the correspondence as presented. We have a motion on the table to receive and file. Is there support? Support. It's been supported by Foley. Clerk, how again? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, we have no new or no old business to conduct. We'll jump right into our new business. And with us today from Fleiss and Vanderbrink, we have Blair Sellover and Catherine Wynn of Fleiss and Vanderbrink to discuss the potential of this board and ask questions as we consider sending a potential contract for legal review. Catherine, the floor is yours.
You got a flyer a little bit about something too. I know somebody
distribute, by all means.
And there's a little bit of
There's some.
how we do business and what we do and what we're doing here and just a hard job.
Thank you.
I see you love it.
Oh, well, I was going to sell over, but, you know, teach your own, you wear it. I like your style.
Okay, well, we've been operating your system for what, a year and a half now?
No, we last July.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've been working with existing UPW staff, providing managerial support and a certified operator for drinking water, for your distribution system, as well as technical support for your sanitary sewer system. So we've been providing that on a 3-day-a-week basis, 4 hours a week, to the township. And we feel that we've been successful and we're hoping to get some of the standard operating procedures and other things into place that help to make that operation more efficient. At the request of the township, we have submitted a proposal to perform full operation of the system and to complete the operation of the water and sanitary sewer system.
Yeah, and at this point in time, as I aforementioned, this is a motion to send to legal review. We have been conducting ourselves in a manner of good faith, abiding by our union contract. But this is also a time for all trustees, if you have questions for Blair or Kat. Some answers aren't answered yet because the following subsequent steps of this process are that this will go to our 3 employees that are in our bargaining unit, that this will impact, Mr. Robinette, Mr. Lytle, and Mr. Luke. And those conversations take place over a period of time. And then we come back with a finalized aspect of that, post legal review. And so this is an opportunity for us, if you have questions. I know that Trustee Latham and myself work diligently with Mr. Sellover and Ms. Wynn in regards to getting this to this point. It has met all of our initial satisfactory points and needs as a municipality. At this point, I know that I feel confident where it stands. Obviously, it has to go through that legal process. Trustee Latham, do you have anything to add in regards to the process itself?
No, the process was thorough. We went through the contracts line by line. Then we made many alterations as we went along the process. I'm satisfied with the language of the contract. I have a much better understanding of the contract. We did clarify section 4.1 that $642,444 includes the $250,000 of
Operating.
costs that go outside the confines of that. So that $250,000 for the rest of the trustees could be less. Hopefully it will not be more. We would effectively bank money for the students for the next year, and then we don't use.
Or we can give you that.
Right. So one way or the other, that $250,000 is calculated in that $53,000. So theoretically, we would be sort of banking money that F&B would use. They would be banking money that F&B would use, and we would do an audit at the end of the contract, at the end of the annual interview. And then, square up, one way or the other, whether we make it or whether we get a check.
Well, it's Blair had mentioned to me and Steve during our discussions about the contract. We have had projects where we have that type of maintenance allowance, what we call it, where we're utilizing funds that are, invoiced monthly into, like you said, into kind of an account that we're tracking for you. But if for some reason that, in the first month of the contract, a large water main break or something occurred, where we would have to utilize more than what we had already received for that month's amount, we would pay it ahead ourselves and then be reimbursed in subsequent months by you. So it works both ways. It's not just that we're taking the township's money and putting it in an account and, potentially getting interest or anything out like that. We are actually utilizing that on a month-by-month basis for operating supplies, for repairs, for other maintenance to the system. And in the event that we would exceed what we had already received, we would continue to do that operation. And then at the end of the year, so we would reconcile that account. We also track that on a monthly basis. That is given to the township every month with a record of the vendor that the purchase was made from, what the material was and cost, so that you have a monthly report in regard to that, so that questions could be asked on a continuing basis if there are any comments or concerns in regards to those expenditures, and not waiting until the 12 months of the contract to try to review that.
Yes, yeah, and I, through that part of the conversation, twofold. One is if this is a direction that the board would like to take when it comes to the potentials of fruition, I will on the agenda add an amendment to our policy and procedure manual that affords a greater level of flexibility in terms of spending allowance in the DPW department. We had already left the fire department and the water department as is at $1,500 before they need permission, but under this representation and management, that ought to be a logical next step, so we're not impeding any processes there. Yes.
How much do you think is raising?
Well, I spoke with Jim, and really, I think it's 5,000 is where depreciation
Is our fixed asset?
is our fixed asset. So that's a pretty logical step, that $5,000 when it's a depreciation fixed asset. That'll be a good marker to start with. And we've had that discussion as well, as look at it. And I spoke with our CPA, and that was where it starts, is at 5,000. To add a little bit more clarity to the number in this contract at 642,444, Steve's already kind of addressed that the $250,000 operational and maintenance allowable expenditures are built into that number. So the contract itself is realistically looking at 392,444, which would be, if you bring it apart, it would be for the contract itself, $32,703.67, and the monthly payment towards the O&M at $20,833. So that's just so that you break it apart. I had that discussion with my trustees already.
Can you go over that one more time? 4244 is the whole lump sum.
Yeah, so that's an annual.
That's the name.
Which brings it up to, if you add, when you look at it in that payment schedule,
Yeah.
in the contract, it's 53,000 and change. It breaks apart just so that it's easier for you to balance in terms of a contract versus a potential fixed asset and expenditure is, $30,703.67. That would be the monthly payment of that contract.
Okay.
And then the additional, that $20,833 is what we're paying in advance. That's what it would be.
Oh, okay.
For projects, infrastructure improvement.
Okay.
So when you look at that number, sometimes it can be a little bit off-putting. Oh, that's a really extreme large number. But through this entire process, we had a wonderful participation with our partners at F&B and great clarification from trustee that as well. So as mentioned, this wasn't a one-round procedure. We utilized, for the township's behalf, we utilized our township attorney, through some of the initial phases. We also utilize C2AE, which is the township's engineering firm, historic, for insight in terms of technical language. And the trustees, Latin and myself, kind of went through and got it to the point where it's at to send out for legal review. And that's where we find ourselves today.
Who is the legal review that'll be reviewing that?
Well, right now we already are looking at Helen Mills,
Oh, okay.
which would Steve, we had an initial talk with him, just to dot that I cross that T, because it's more of getting in toward the labor
Yeah.
contractual aspect. And it's met all the marks to date, with help from Mr. Golden. And now it's getting into the realm of let's dot the i's, cross the t's in terms of the labor concerns. Because as it stands, this item on the agenda and the subsequent item are in reference to us as a municipality abiding by our bargaining unit contract with FOPLC. So,
Let me ask you some more questions.
most definitely.
So, according, I mean, just to be able to afford this, do our auditing firm, CPA firm feel comfortable that we can afford this?
With the numbers that have already been provided to this board, and it's obviously the first year is going to be a benchmark to see, and as subsequent years progress, just in the early calculations, I think with the spreadsheet that you presented the board during our budget hearings, we're initially looking at somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 annually. That would be a cost savings. Now that is not a fixed number, it is fluid. But as Trustee Lappin stated, with that $250,000, if we don't utilize that full allotment of expenditure, that can be rolled over. So therein, you're looking at cost savings potentially there as well, with a mechanism for either a reimbursement check and or the rollover aspect. And then we can also have their administrative aspects of basically breaking out everything that we would need for our year audit. Here's our expenditures, these are the projects, these are your fixed asset lists. So in this process, we've given FB above and beyond probably what they really wanted in terms of our inventory, but we threw everything out there. This is what we have because a lot of things, not only in the fire department, but in the water department, have a relevance in terms of the timeline. And if we don't utilize some of the things that we have on shelves, technologies, improvements, whatever it may come to be, that's no longer an acceptable practice and or a piece of equipment. So we have a plethora of inventory that hopefully will show us, at least in this first year, depending on projects and scope, a potential cost savings there as well. Yeah, this is the potential, not only from my standpoint as supervisor that's been overseeing the water department for a handful of years, not only a mechanism for a fiduciary response from the township, but more importantly and equal to a professionalism and a managerial point. Thus far, I've been impressed with all the leadership that's been provided and oversight from F&B, from our operator in charge, Kurt Toombs, to other S1, they're technically all S1 operators, well, Kurt, Doug, Eric, yes, and yourself. So we have availability of 3 S1 licensures, which I know that the last batch is
I know too.
And we have a few others kicking around.
I do apologize for that. Sea lovers. I do apologize. Thanks for the point of clarification. So we're afforded so much knowledge base that's, like I said, on the balancing scale, that professionalism and that knowledge base to me is priceless. I don't think it's ever been afforded. Our township's DPW. We've had licensures, but I think we've had discussions where you can have a license, you just don't have the abilities. And we have the licenses and the abilities at this point. Are there any other questions for Captain Blair?
Yes, I have one. This has nothing to do with the contract per se, it really has more to do with potential employees. The current employee of the township has certain employee benefits that they enjoy, and I suspect that may come up in some kind of conversation. Do you have a sort of a cafeteria approach to employee benefits? And if you don't know the answer,
No, we do, we absolutely do. They'll have the full insurance, so 401k, vacation, right, and all those kinds of benefits that go along with it. And one of the things, we reviewed your budget, and I know it's frustrating, a little bit, but I want to see all of this. So they come up with a correct estimate. I think we said this in the meeting, we look forward to probably giving them a raise that's, don't like the fact that they can do this stuff. So we like that to be a whole. That's our biggest goal of transition for us. But it's not that, they've got all the medical, they're not going to be exactly the same. We have to do lots of trips. We've got a regular local table match. They do give Christmas bonuses. I don't think we get those here. So there's some things that are good, and it's a little bit different, but it's pretty. As far as I'm concerned, I work full size. It's very comfortable. My level is my one.
And that's what we as operating in good faith under the FOPLC contract, we had to make sure that is as linear of a process in that offering as possible.
basically, there's a lot of ask the questions, so that we don't.
We have to we've got dental insurance, vision insurance,
Life insurance for disability, long-term disability, and then very, very expensive.
So in regards to this item of business on the agenda, if this is a direction that we so choose, then we send it for legal review. And then once it passes legal review, in that process, that's when the union gets in, they have conversations, points of clarification are made in those exchanges. This is not at this moment, we're agreeing right now to move forward with this contract. We have time stamp lines that we have to meet and satisfy our bargaining unit table, which will be explained in our next item of business. Ms. Laura.
I just have two questions. Like as far as, when all this happens and if everything goes through, would there be someone from F&U here, like 5 days a week?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and that's the thing that, we absorb the township's employees, if we utilize them in the system. There's the staffing plans to have, 3 full-time staff here every day, Monday through Friday.
My other question is, I'm just curious to how Kelly is the billing clerk right now for water. In those departments, obviously interact, she's following them, whatever. Is that, any of that process going to change, or I just didn't know how that was going to work with, like, her getting a phone call and there's a problem here or whatever. So it basically stayed the same. It's just 2 sheets.
Yeah, and then we'll have a more extensive contact list. We provided one, to the township when we initiated the managerial part of the project of contact numbers, and that list of numbers will grow and be available to Kelly as well as to other township staff in the event that there's an emergency. We don't like to have a single point of contact, and we'll work with the township, and we've done this with other systems where we have a designated on-call number that can be supplied to dispatch or whoever, and then that number basically rotates among the employees that are on call. They would either carry a phone or it would be forwarded to their other cell phone, so that there would be a single number that they could call for emergency and it would go to whoever is readily available.
Are there any other points of clarification by any trustees or our guests today?
I just have a question. Has this been proposed or addressed with any other company or organization?
It has not.
Was that an issue or?
We don't see it as, I've asked this, I don't see, because we're in an existing contract, so the RFP aspect, as we went through, when we found F&B, met those, and Tim, you can butt in if there's anything that I say is wrong. Considering we're already in a contract, we're just looking to expand the parameters of the contract. It met legal standards in terms of not going out for RFP. So, have I stated anything I agree?
We discussed that earlier, and that was not my concern, because people who put this out, who said that was the answer. So,
I want to hear the answer, so we all do.
Oh, yeah. No,
yeah, I understand.
I'm okay with that.
yeah, if I would have felt any potential gray area in that matter, then I would have came back to the board and said, well, then we're gonna hit pause and we're gonna go in this direction. So, everything that I was here and educated in made it kosher. Yes, trustee Boyd.
Steve, Lappin, you were involved in this and going through it in detail with you, I believe, and Supervisor Skibby. And everything that you see here, I know you're kind of in the details, so. I have another word for that.
Yeah.
The details is perfect. I assume that everything that you've done here and Supervisor Skibby, that this is all meeting the requirements of what this township board has B is, not knowing how to totally read agreements and contracts and putting my trust in the people that do, including our attorney and our other labor attorney, that they're saying, yes, this is the correct thing and the correct ways to go.
Yeah, there were some inconsistencies in some areas as we first moved through those, and I looked to change those inconsistencies to consistencies, and I believe we accomplished that. There really wasn't any, those areas that I understood, because I don't profess to be a DPW guy. I profess to be able to read these and see whether or not they make sense to me. All those areas that I understood, I think were fine. Certainly from my professional standpoint, insurance is fine. Those areas that I didn't have the technical expertise to, Nathan did, or that most of the did, and we hammered those things out. And so at the end of the day, I think that I think it's a good contract. Now, Liz may come up with other things that we just missed, or potentially come up with something we just missed. But if there are, I don't suspect they will be significant. There might be a couple of weird deals there.
Trustee Gunkel, are you still with us?
Yes, Norm, I'm with you.
I just wondered if you had any comments on this. You usually have something to bring into the equation.
You know, I'd love to be able to do that, but frankly, the audio quality is such that I'm really struggling to make out. I can tell who's speaking, and but the nuances are flying over my head. So maybe I can get together with you at some point and But anyway, it's tough for me to hear what's going on.
Yeah, like Trustee Lappin.
Yeah, I did. You must, Norm, you must be closer to the microphone, because whoever just spoke, I just got a muddle. It's got like Jules Verne on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, that's good.
Well, do you have anything to add to this equation of what we've been discussing? Maybe you didn't hear all of it.
Not at this time, but thanks, Norm. Thanks for thinking of me.
I was gonna think of you as well, but our eldest trustee beat me to the punch.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and as stated in the agenda, this is just a contract review, a legal review. We're not committing at this point in time. We're just taking the next step. And at this point in time, I feel comfortable. Obviously, Trustee Lappin has given his words. It has gone through initial battery of explanations and clarifications through C2AE and our township attorney. And we feel comfortable at this point in time to take the next step. Trustee Fuller.
That was my other comment. I just kind of slipped by, but I'm glad that you had C2AE,
Yep.
get their expertise involved in this and looking at it for the aspect of
Right.
the work.
Well, if there's one thing I've learned in at least the last 3 years, if not the subsequent 40 years, is that there's professionals in fields for a reason. And let's utilize the professionals that we have access to, utilize those resources. So we've explored those resources, utilized them, and came to this point of a satisfactory document to move forward.
I would just like to comment that, I mean, over the last year, I've been very impressed with F&B. I mean, your professionalism, you're there if we have a question or a call, or the knowledge that you bring. I think this is a huge plus for the township, and it's long overdue to get up with the times. And so anyway, thank you. And
Yeah, and for all intent and purpose, it was a fairly painless process. Like as Trustee Lappin stated, the inconsistencies, we really kind of worked through those in the very first discussion, because it was just similar inconsistencies, if you will, of our existing contract, a lot of boilerplate. So we got basically right back to where we needed, that met the goals and aspirations and the needs of our municipality and system. If there's no other questions or discussion, I would entertain a motion to move forward with legal review.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dunkel,
Yes.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Thank you very much for both being here. I appreciate it.
Nice to get back to work. This is the first day in 2 months I've left the house for work.
Yeah, you look a little bit different than a Zoom meeting, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate all you guys' help.
Oh, yeah, we're utilizing the technologies that we're afforded there again. So I appreciate both of you being here in person. And so we will move forward with the next item of business, which is a letter of intent. As I mentioned in the first item of business, is a letter of intent to explore legal review of the F&B contract with FOPLC. The letter, I believe, is in your packet. This letter has already been emailed and mailed hard copy to Paul Postal. And this would start by the union contract. This starts their 10-day process, initial process. And is this, there again, one more step that we're following by the bargaining unit's contract. So this letter had been mailed out, but I would like a motion to approve the letter of intent. This letter of intent was actually drafted by our labor attorney to make sure that we're just dotting our I's, making sure that we're keeping one foot in front of the other. And if you need a copy of the FOPLC contract to peruse again for your own fun reading, we can make sure that you get those copies.
Yep, page 22.
Page 22, Article 18, subsection E, which stipulates the subcontracting aspects. So we're just dotting I's, crossing T's, as we should, to be employers acting in good faith. Yes, Laura?
I just have a question. Does the 10 days start on June 5th, or does it start today?
It's
It was described by attorneys that it should start the day that he receives
Right.
the hard copy letter,
Okay.
which would be today. He's in Traverse City, so he doesn't have to go to Traverse City to come back to Alpena.
So today would be the day.
Today would be
As long as he receives.
fair
it.
enough.
Yeah.
And in order, and to give actually additional information to this process, Clerk Palovich and myself, this last Friday, sat down with the DPW employees and verbalized the potential intent of sending for legal review and initiating a conversation as to a potential direction. They have questions, but they're going to get the answers as they go through the discussionary phase with F&B, the bargaining unit, and probably ourselves as well, to make sure that everything, all the i's are dotted, t's are crossed. As you've heard, by union contract, we can't offer something that is not almost a parallel. It has to be a very like scenario, and that's what's being offered. So
If the employees do have questions, could they contact?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll leave my cards.
All right,
Yeah, and
just
so-
that they feel,
Absolutely, just, yeah, call my cell phone.
Yeah.
That's the best way to reach me, and if I can't answer them, I'll send them to my human resources department.
perfect, thank you.
Yeah,
I don't like to give dirty details on insurance and those kinds of things, because. Yeah, we do. I know.
coming from the insurance guy.
Well, you know, you get, well, how much if I opt out for the insurance, so what's the payment? Yeah, I don't know, I take the insurance, so I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And I don't have an HSA, so I don't know how that all those different details work. We have multiple plans. Let the HR people or experts take care of that. So we'll reach out to you, Catherine, and we'll put in touch with you.
Because we're just continuing to operate as employers of good faith. So this is, by the union contract, was the next step. It was mailed, so it should be there today, which would be the start time. And there's no harm, no foul in saying, we got it today, 10 days on to the hour. I mean, we can say, a reasonable, we're not trying to make any shortcomings, cut
Does it
anybody.
count business days or does it count the weekends?
I'm trying to remember if it stated business days or if it's,
No, just say. Employer and subcontract work normally performed by bargaining unit employees and for which the employer has facilities to perform without first giving the union 10 days written notice of subcontract. So just 10 consecutive days.
yeah, so. Trustee Dunkel, are you okay?
Super. Yeah, I'm okay.
Sounded like you got sucked up by a sharknado.
Thank you for caring.
Well,
Carry on.
no worries. So are there any questions as to the next logic? I mean, we're just following protocol in terms of our contract at this point. So I'd entertain a motion to move forward with or approve the fact of a letter of intent being the next logical labor relations activity.
So move.
We have a motion on the table just to approve the letter of intent. Is there support? Support. Supported by Polly. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Polly?
Yes.
Trustee Lappin?
Yeah.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers?
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel?
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby?
Yes. So yes, by June, what is today, the 9th? So by June 19th, that's more than adequate. We can say the 20th if everybody likes even numbers. That would be 10 days. So they will be informed, they'll have points of contact. And before I can get you or email you if you want to depart early. I can get you contacts for Paul Postal. I think it sounded like you guys may have already had, no, that was a different attorney. So I can get you Paul Postal's contact. It's like attorneys and insurance guys, you know, they go hand in hand. No, so I can get you those points of contact.
That's the only one you're missing.
Oh, yeah. Not here, yeah. So, yeah, we'll start those discussions with employees and the bargaining unit, which you have done this process with other municipalities and other union bargaining units. And I'm sure we'll be in close.
This is being more than generous. I've seen committees go over rates to the minute. Literally to the minute.
Well, it's always easier to catch a fly with honey than the opposite. So, you know, we're not trying to sweep anything under the rug. We're being very transparent with our current employees. They have families or trying to start families. So, yeah, we care about employees. So we're doing everything in our power to not only look out for individuals, but in the macro sense, our infrastructure and our municipality. So thank you very much for everything thus far, and we will be in close contact. Yeah, if you want to pass out business cards, I'll make sure that the DPW guys get it. That way, if there are any questions, yeah.
Thank you.
I have here, you can get it. Okay.
And they do have our contact information. I know when we started the contract that we're doing currently last year, they were given my contact information. Yep. I know that they have reached out to me, so if they need to speak to Blair or to speak to someone in our HR department, they can always reach out to me.
Most definitely.
That usually works better, actually.
I'm a little easier to get a hold of.
I just have to, I'm Robert, but I'm not going to take time right now. We're running a board meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be in close communication as the days progress.
We look forward to joining the community a little stronger.
Yeah.
Look forward to working with you.
Most definitely. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Safe travels.
So moving forward is Meyer Road. Meyer Road, this is a special assessment district. Last year we had Pole, Burks Manor, and Eldon. MacArthur Construction won the support or won the bid through the Road Commission for this district. And they provided his version of a quote. And it's before you. I do have a rudimentary map of services. So this is similar to what we did last year in terms of a scale and scope of project, where if we're going to be putting in a brand new road, let's take the opportunity and redo our infrastructure. So that way we meet lead and copper rules. Everything that's coming down the pipe, we'll know everything that touches the main into the house. And I believe his number was $44,800. And there are a total of, I can tell, breakdown. 16 services. I think that's at 2,800. I did specify because one learning curve over the two that we conducted last year in utilization of MacArthur Construction was a lackluster finish quality. I've sat down with the co-owner of MacArthur Construction and reiterated the fact that we would rather pay a little bit more upfront to have a project and have a site restored the way it was. He was in agreement. He's actually purchased equipment to do such work. It's still a learning curve because landscaping is more of a scalpel than it is a butcher. Yeah, a spade, a dull, rusty spade at best. So he's getting better, and it's actually starting to, from my initial sense with this new equipment, starting to see in terms of the invoicing, not having, we still have had to utilize a subcontractor to do some landscaping. But I foresee hopefully a cost reduction in those practices moving forward. But MacArthur Construction is looking at starting this whole district project in 2 weeks' time. And so he emailed me a quote or an email quote as to, and don't get me wrong, I would love to see a quote, but this is, if you know Mr. MacArthur, this is a pretty good response from Adrian. Yes, Steve?
So I would personally like to see more detail myself. So I don't want to walk into a situation where, and again, I just don't know the expectation of these 16 water service lines. They would meet whatever code needs to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have. So in this quote, specifications are, and especially with what's coming down and foreseeable, which we've already started to implement, proactive procedures to meet the 2025 standards of Eagle.
Okay.
So all the supplies, all the materials are actually purchased by us, which is all intent and purpose a cost savings. So from the main, that gooseneck is lead-free brass. We've been trying to, depending on the topography and the soil scope, and utilize copper wherever possible because copper is the most durable. And curb stop, so main to curb stop is our responsibility by our water ordinance. Curb stop to the home is homeowner's responsibility. So yes, everything, long and short, everything that's being implemented will meet all standards moving forward. And then the best part about it is, same as I've said from day one, is as soon as that's buried, we as humans tend to have a thought that it isn't important until it goes wrong. So we know that we're going to be putting in satisfactory materials in the proper technique, and hopefully it will give 30, 40 more years, because this section of town, the infrastructure was put in the ground between 77 and 81, like the majority of our infrastructure. You know, the good, the bad, and the ugly is products back then. The light blue poly CTS line is still being recalled. They have, I took it to legal counsel, and the state of Michigan does not afford much in terms of the abilities for looking at what is big lawsuit. But there's no grounds for us to try to hop on that. So we are, like I said, we're trying to use copper, especially from main to curb stop, because that's usually, so there's 16 services. There's a considerable amount that are on opposite side of the main. We're actually going to be replacing both this time, because that was one thing that we learned last year, is that when we're digging on the main side, bad past practices where they don't meet standards of capping distances off the main had to be corrected, and damages occurred on the short side of the main. So this quote is for all services in that road. Yes, Laura.
Is there a reason we don't have another quote or another bid or?
When I passed this by Larry Orcott, it's the exact same thing he said with Begland Drive, as to there was issues, and I know that Steve, you're aware of that. This was where Begland Drive was awarded to Elmer's, and Road Commission, even though MacArthur's was not, they were the lowest bid, went with Elmer's because Elmer's was on site. That was the justification. So it's the same as last year when we have one firm doing, it just makes more logistical sense than trying to have two whole construction companies in one 8-mile long road with a tiny cul-de-sac trying to work over one another.
But didn't we talk last year that they won't do that sometimes? You won't get other people to bid it if someone's already got the contract for the other portion.
Exactly. So this is just following suit with how we responded last year with keeping everything expedited and having one primary contracting service in a location. Because it would be a logistical nightmare for them to meet a timeline once they started digging up the road to have the road completed by the road commission standard.
I would, unless there's nothing else, I would make a motion to approve the quote as presented by MacArthur with the 16 water service lines to be replaced on Wiley Road with appropriate current code approved material at $20 a piece for a total of $44.80.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
I'll support.
Supported by Foley. He's quick today. Yes, he's on fire. Any further discussion? I do have one point, just to add. All the materials there again are being purchased by the township through the guy. So it's all lead-free brass. We know the curb stops meet our standards. So, yep. Any other discussion? I thought I heard.
What GL number is it?
Well, it really come out of 592-100, 754-000, maintenance on system. I'm getting pretty good at those
I'm
GLs.
kind of impressed. You've
Yeah,
got them
good
down.
So seeing no other discussion, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes?
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel,
Yes.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. I will inform Mr. MacArthur that we have approved his quote. And we will get that addressed sooner rather than later. Moving forward, letter of support for the House bill. This is, Laura, would you actually like to take point? This is a request from
NEMCOG, Diane Rakowski. They just wanted a letter of support as these House bills are in the works at the moment, and they will either be their proposed amendments and revisions on the following subjects as it pertains to the Michigan solid waste law reform. It's in regards to environmental protection, solid waste, disposal areas, waste diversion centers, financial assurance provisions, incinerator enforcement, and funding and grant provisions, material utilization, facilities and materials management planning. And it's just things that they want to clean up, and just wanted a letter of support from our township in regards to recycling and solid waste management.
Yes, so to add, because both Laura and myself sit on that board. One, where it should start, one of the biggest hamstrings with a limiting factor of our recycling within the county is that Michigan as a whole and Alpena Montmorency, what is it? The Ascota, MOA, landfill authority. We have probably the smallest tipping fees. I think it is in the state. It's grossly non-recycle minded. I think times are changing. This has been we've been hearing it on the recycling board for the past couple of years that Michigan's going to be changing and making landfills have more of a recycling minded focus, which it should, because there again, burying stuff under the ground isn't a solution. So if we can minimize and reuse some of those materials, we're all better for it. I would entertain a motion I drafted one letter of support in regards to another grant potential through NEMCOG and the recycling board. I would easily draft another letter of support in regards to.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion to write a letter of support to NEMCOG in regards to House Bills 5812 through 5817. Is there support?
Support. Support for the support.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. I'd like to be supportive.
You are extremely supportive, sir. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passed. The next item of business is a quote. This was kind of a systemic conversation that popped up at our last board meeting where we approved a security wall and windows for the treasurer's office. And so I reached out to Mr. Code, who is the proprietor of Harborside Tint, who provided a quote. This quote is not for just the windows in the treasurer's office that are on the west and south side of solely her office. It is a quote from every window from the treasurer's office all the way to the last office in the clerk's, which is now the election room office. If you're not familiar, this product you can get with a mirrored glaze. It is not bulletproof. It allows bullets to pass through. It does not allow the glass to shatter. When it is a mirrored finish, anybody on the outside cannot see in, so that eliminates the potentials of targeting. And the side note of this product is that it affords an R value, because on this south side, you could probably have Laura and Michelle state the sun coming through those windows. It's fun for you guys, isn't it? I know.
It's never warm enough.
And we're all sweating and
So, I don't think you want it, we'll like this one out.
There's an argument.
Yeah, and anyways, outside that, Norm.
I have a question, though. I'm confused. It says anchoring last item.
Yeah.
On 3 entry doors south facing towards baseball field.
Well, it's
They
the
mean
doors
this
here.
wall, forget the
Correct.
baseball field.
Yeah, when I said from the corner, the south side of the building, it includes those primary doors.
Those 2 doors right there.
Correct.
Okay. It says 3 here, 3 entry doors.
And obviously, we don't have to worry about the taxes.
Yeah, taxes I let him know he was apologetic as to including those.
Am I missing the 3rd door?
Is it the back door
Uh,
that we need to replace?
yeah, I think he did that. So we could probably remove the back door, because right now he did it. It was we're looking at quotes for,
The windows.
well, the windows, but he included the window that's on the door that we're also getting additional quotes for replacement, which is at the end of the hall. So right now it's half glass, so that would be a reduction, because we're looking at potentially replacing it with a solid door.
See,
Is that a film that goes on the inside or outside of the?
It goes on, it's kind of 2-part, and his office is just down the road. I've never seen it. I mean, at the last meeting, it was kind of mentioned. It's probably like a 1 mil thick product. It's a rigid. That's why when it gets into the caulking, they install it on the inside and caulk as an anchoring on the inside.
So it's probably scratch resistant to that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's pretty stout stuff. Yes, Norm?
one other comment, when it says you cannot see in from the outside during the day, at night, it completely goes the opposite way. So if you're working in your office at night, you become the target. It works backwards at night. So just so you
So
understand.
if I'm in here early in the morning and flip my light on, everybody can see me in here,
If it's dark.
if it's dark outside.
More than now.
No, it would just be like it doesn't exist when it's dark, because it's not like it amplifies it. It's just be like, if it's dark outside, you turn on the light, there you are. Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, that is a fact. It's just during business operational hours, which the majority of the year are, obviously we have some of the doldrums of that wonderful month called February, where it's dark when you come in, it's dark when you leave.
Yeah, just so you understand that, because it works just the opposite for the darkness. So when you're outside,
I did not know that. Thank you, Norm.
yeah, I stopped down and looked at it, and I was impressed with what it is. I think it'd be very beneficial, and I think it's the right way to go.
My issue with it is spending that money at this time.
Which leads into my thought.
Because, for the Fran, we're down here having to do budget adjustments. It's hard for me to justify spending $7,000 right now.
So I saw this the other day, but after our last meeting, I thought, why do we need, from what I understand, this counter, the entire counter would become essentially a bulletproof glass wall, right?
Yes.
Why do we need the whole wall, the whole counter?
Because you have to do, because this is the reason, Steve, and I know that you would appreciate this. If you spend $2,000 for a bulletproof service window, what good is that $2,000 when the wall that it's connected to is not bulletproof?
Well, no differently than the wood underneath there.
It's steel.
Or
Everything's, that's why we,
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we have this, this plexiglass or this Luan or something like that on either side. I just wondered if the cost of the bulletproof glass could be offset by an appropriate material that would be either bulletproof, bullet resistant, or put a piece of steel there, whatever it might be, as in an effort to mitigate costs and focus people into, instead of a 20-foot piece of bulletproof glass, maybe a 8-foot piece of bulletproof glass with probably two areas where it could be serviced, something like that. I'm just thinking, noodling a little bit to see whether or not that makes sense. And then to see an additional $7,000.
yeah.
As Michelle has said, it kind of,
Well, and I wholeheartedly don't disagree. I mean, the reason I went and got this quote was because at the last meeting was, hey, there's a product out there, go explore it, see what you can do. And I also don't disagree with Clerk Palavich's stance of, hey, let's do our budget adjustments. I mean, to be honest, there's also some additional clarity that I could probably pass by just with, hey, you don't need to do 3 doors. We could narrow the scope. But I think at this point in time, it's a potential relevant topic, but we can table it until a subsequent meeting for clarity purposes. And let's get through the exercise of,
I would
let's
like
make
to
some
make a motion to
amendments.
table it until we get through the budget and maybe re-explore it at our next meeting. Yeah.
So we have a motion to table to the subsequent meeting. Is there support?
I'll support.
Supported by further discussion? Foley?
No, that tables and allows us to do further discussion.
Yep. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion at this point in time? Yeah, don't disagree. It's a substantial amount of money. I just kind of followed the board's directions and looked into it because it was a product I didn't really know that it existed, so.
I think we have limits with this building, obviously, and it's all glass all the way around. So I think, unfortunately, that's a high number, but if you had to put bulletproof glass.
Oh, my goodness.
That's probably a fraction.
That's one window.
Yeah.
That's one window if you went full bulletproof glass.
Since we're on this subject, have you heard an update on when they might start that?
We should be inside of 2 weeks now. He's waiting. He said that he would, reached out to Mr. Britton, middle of last week. And he stated that, because I was like, well, how about you start the wall, but the anchoring system with those windows into steel studs is such that he wants to wait for the windows to be on site. And he just wants to come in, start it and finish it rather than piecemeal it. And I tend to, as much as I try to shoo him a little bit quicker, I also don't disagree with his methodology.
But you think he'll be done before July 1st?
I've given him, yeah. So once he has all the products, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, perfect.
So we tabled 5.
Do you want to do a voice vote or?
Yeah, we can just do a voice vote. All those in favor of tabling the tinting quote to the subsequent meeting signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion passed to table. Next on the agenda is a return to work policy that both Ms. Malcolmson and I have been putting together through all the documents that we've received through MIOSHA and other state and federal organizations to have in place as we start looking at gearing back to a the new normal in terms of spacing and regulations of occupying this office space. As noted by Treasurer Ellery Summers, everything that's in yellow, as this went back to the personnel meeting, Cash, Norm, and myself, everything that was in yellow were the talking points that I had her address. Although there are, as on page 4, there are some clarifications that she made corrections in other spots, but did not make corrections in terms of the language, like the last sentence, for example. I want a single, in terms of this, there needs to be, instead of just asking several different people, there should be a singular point or an appointment of the supervisor to make those standards. Yes.
So we need a coordinator for this.
Which would be, which is the next item of business. And at this point in time, there are some, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt the policy with known amendments of the language clarifications. That way we can make those clarifications in the language. But that way we have a document that meets our state standards so that we can take the next logical steps as we start implementing returns and office hours of convenience for the public.
And your known amendments, just to clarify, would be that there would be one single point contact person, which would be the supervisor.
Well, instead of, so some of the corrections were, instead of like page 3 where it's highlighted in yellow where it just says township supervisor. I just don't want to have too much dissemination of information because it's the old campfire analogy. If you have a question, you ask your department head, by the time it may come back around, there may be something amiss. So some of the clarifications are, instead of department head or human resources, it's ask one person unless.
So you want one person township supervisor, not department
Yeah,
head, HR.
Yeah, and so there's still and I thought she moved out most, but as Laura kind of started thumbing through it, it's still in a couple spots. So with those reductions, she's addressed most of it. 6, she addressed it, but unfortunately it fell through the cracks.
It looks very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did a good job, and it meets all state and federal standards. And she addressed all the questions that the personnel committee had, outside of just a cliff note of a cliff note. But sign page, so upon finalization of this policy, each employee of the township will sign, and a copy would go in their personnel file to make sure that we've noted as the employer that we are in compliance. And that language has also been added in that as hours progressed, my phone will probably blow up at 10:03 tonight to understand that we're in executive order 2020-117 and beyond. So it abides by, it gives us the legalese to say that, hey, this will change. Some of these parameters change, so we don't have to, on a daily or weekly basis, make amendments to a document. We have something in place, we meet those standards, we're already abiding above and beyond. We're still in abiding by, as it stands, Executive Order 2020-110 in compliance with social spacing. There are still some smaller parameters with markings on the floor that we'll have to hit before we're fully integrated. Obviously, the front office, that's a very large contingent because the spacing of those windows meet the COVID standards in terms of social distancing as well. That's one of the reasons that it wasn't, and plus cost. If you do one window in that material, it was worth like 4 of the same size windows that we ordered. So by having 2 windows, it was probably roughly half the cost of having a large spanse. I explored numerous options. And then I thought, why would I save money on putting a wooden 2x4 and sheetrock under around bulletproof? We did it with safety and we're one and done. So I would entertain a motion to approve the COVID-19 safety workplace policy with language amendments to be brought forward. Yeah, we've discussed the language
For
amendments.
a single point of contact.
For a single point of contact. Do we have a motion to such effect?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
Or,
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
I guess the only discussion I would wonder is that this document theoretically will sunset one day.
Correct.
And so I think that it could have language in there that would handle a pandemic as opposed to a specific item, so we don't have to keep redoing this stuff.
Well,
But of course, if it's set up by the governor's standards, it is what it is.
it is, yeah, we're kind of handcuffed. I don't disagree. Why not have a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to it? You know, if this township would have been of the knowledge mindset, this would have originally said SARS or bird flu.
Right, right.
And now it's COVID-19 and next year it's,
Having to stack this all.
yeah. So I mean,
No issues.
at least now, moving forward, we at least have safety protocols that meet the state and federal guidelines and CDC guidelines and MIOSHA guidelines moving forward. So we won't have to recreate the entire wheel.
Right.
God forbid, the next newest and new. So we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion passed. I will make those easy, quick language changes. But this would now afford us the opportunity to start, which would be my next phase of reintroducing some of our remote workers to meet. That way we can have offsets. We have liquor inspections that are going to be starting up by Liquor Control, State of Michigan are starting to say, they've extended those guidelines, but they want to start seeing with bars and everything else through other executive orders, some of our primary functions getting back to normal. So staffing, hopefully in some set, I mean, we can start working out with department heads and offsetting, making sure that we're abiding by social distancing, but get into what will be hopefully more of a normal aspect of operations. The next is a COVID-19 coordinator. By the regulations, there has to be a coordinator of this document. That's all it states. It's not, it is a title. This is make sure that everybody has signed this, meet those standards. Trustee Paul.
I'd like to make a motion that we suggest that Laura take care of this position, since she's here all the time very faithfully.
Well, we have a motion on the table.
Would you accept that position? Do you have time? You're coming into your busy.
Just to have people,
Yeah, it's everything that a coordinator would do is already in place. This document is done.
is it better to have me do this or? I'm
I'll
just,
support the motion.
It comes through. Dunkel comes through all
all
of the
I'm
stuff.
doing is collecting them, but if somebody has questions about it, they're gonna go to you.
Like
You guys have already gone to discussion.
yes, yes. Well, you gave us the opportunity, and thank you for the point of clarification of support so that we could have discussion. You are a consummate professional, sir. Yes. So the work that a COVID coordinator by state and federal standards would be creating this document. That's the biggest thing, and it's already created. So now it's just meeting, and I'll work with you. I mean, I'm not going to just leave you. It's just literally, here's a sign-in sheet. Does everybody know where the sign-in sheet is? This is our safety workplace return policy. But it's, all the work's done.
Well, if you wanna work together on it, so.
I'll help you. I'm not gonna, by all means. I'll give you a hand. It's nothing that's frightful. It's just a position of, yes, trustee.
And Laura, my only thought was, you're here daily, faithfully. So, and the thing it states that I read the most is there's a place that somebody can go to, or instead of just like Nathan was saying, go, and all the work's done, just follow through.
Well, and Michelle's here too all the time, but I know with your election stuff coming up.
Well, honestly, it is a title and purpose. The three of us already know if somebody comes in, hey, sign in. I mean, we've met the standards. This is a position to meet yet again another standard. And as Trustee Lappin said, when is it going to sunset? Well, that's why we added the language that this document will change based upon state and federal statutes and protocols. So as soon as those trickle down from federal to state to us, then this is a moot point. So it's not anything that's going to go into perpetuity. So we have a motion and support. Did we vote on this?
No, we did not.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Okay, so now we get into the fun aspect of our exercise that I gave everybody at our last board meeting. Michelle provided everybody with a year-to-date budget. Since we have our chief with us right now for this exercise, I would say, and Chief, did she give you a copy of today's printout, which probably isn't a tremendous amount different than the one I gave you?
Want me to run one quick?
Could you run one? That way we're just looking at identical numbers. But I figure since you're here, we can get you your input from the fire department, and then we can move back into general fund. Just so you know, Trustee Dunkel, the clerk and the treasurer went to make a hard copy of the budget for Chief Robbins.
Okay, thanks. I have a student who needs advising at 12:30. I'm gonna duck out for a minute and come back at 12:30.
Not a problem. You do what you have to do. Thank you for your participation.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's just that we're doing this online advising now, and you're assigned your advisees. They go through admissions process, and then you get them at whatever time they're available. So I apologize for that, but I will come back as soon as I'm done with the advice session.
Thank you very much, Trustee Dunkel.
Yep, okay, thanks. Yep. I'm with you until then.
Okay. So, for Michelle and Laura that kind of stepped out, since we have Chief with us, I figured we could start this exercise just getting his input on Department 336, Fire Department and the Public Safety Fund. So basically, this would be page 9 of 13 for the board into page 10 of 13. Chief, the floor is yours.
Just as a start, about a line item, we know the managers, 7270000 is office supplies.
Okay.
I would submit to you that we can cut that in half.
Which line item, please?
205-336-727-000. It's 3/4 of the way down on page 9. Recommendation of fee for a reduction of 50% at $750.
707?
727.
727. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Office supplies.
Office supplies.
The next one I would suggest would be, two more lines down, 728000, which is computer hardware. My understanding earlier is that we were supposed to get some new computers this year, that based on a budget crunch like that, I would say, why don't you drop that entirely for this fiscal year, and we'll make our computers last another year.
Is that something we can grant right for too?
You can always write grants for
We can
anything.
always try.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, but
So-
that would, yeah, that would represent another 4,000 right there. Two more lines down, 731010, fire operational supplies, which was set at 10,000. I would feel comfortable right now, again, cutting that one 50% down to 5,000. I'd have to be very judicious on this. Basically is a line item that we would buy, like if we need to replace a section of hose, a nozzle, something like that. I'll just,
Well, and I also want the board and everybody present to be cognizant of the fact that we're looking at a budget shortfall from our revenue sharing. And we're taking a very proactive stance, knowing what is going to trickle down to some degree. Budgets are living documents. By making these amendments and recommendations today, doesn't mean that in our 6-month or our 9-month, 3/4 of the year of this fiscal, additional amendments can't be made to potentially restore funds if things change. We're just trying to be as proactive as possible. So, Trustee Floyd.
Can I just throw a quick question in? Sure. Why has the fire department used 25 grand of this 100,000 that the general fund puts in, and you've got a 1.5 point millage? Why isn't that being taken out of the millage money?
which line item are you?
He's making note of revenue on the top of page 9, the 336692000 general fund contribution.
Because we've given them 3 months worth, April, May, and June.
That's what that money is.
That's what that money is.
Okay.
The money that the general fund gives.
Okay.
So we've given them 3 months, so that would be 25,000.
Okay, I see where you're going with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, generally, the treasurer's office would give us like monthly payments out of that.
Okay.
That's where that's.
Fine, cash flow.
Oh, sorry.
So just a question, are we tracking, so in case the numbers come out better, are we putting anything that we can save in a separate account or just going into the general fund? You know what I mean? So like say it's not as bad of a account and we can restore these. Is somebody tracking this? Is there a way to?
Well, I think I know where you're going at. So the one way that is a tracking mechanism with our BSNA software is that these amendments are noted. So if we go through and say, the board grants me the ability to make amendments A through H, or whatever the case may be, to the sum of X. When I go into the system in BSNA and make those amendments, it timestamps debit and credit. So there's a tracking mechanism because our budgets are fluid. These are, for all intent and purpose, somewhat fictitious numbers. These are anticipated figures based upon historical records. So that's how that would be tracked. Now are you thinking in terms of a banking scenario where this is real money and we're putting it aside into an account?
Yeah, so like we're projecting that we're gonna see 40%, but when it's all said and done, it comes back as 20%.
Yeah.
So maybe we can restore the ones we've taken
Yeah.
out.
But we're not doing, this isn't real money.
Right.
These are anticipated revenues and anticipated expenditures. So we're just sitting on Wall Street acting as if we're well-educated speculators looking at historical reference points. So To answer your question, not having this being hard cash or cold hard cash, as they call it on the streets, that's how this would be denoted. So we can come back, even as an exercise on a quarterly, if not more regular basis, and say, these were the amendments that we made in our first round. What we're seeing is maybe we need to take a little bit more. Maybe it's the opposite. But we have that as a tracking mechanism of budget amendments, when it happened, where it came from, where it's going.
Or I'd like to just say, for example, Dave got a deal on a whole bunch of hoses and it was going to cost more than $5,000. We could always make that amendment to cover, you know what I mean?
Yeah, budgets have to be fluid. Budgets are anticipated figures. I just want to anticipate the fact that we're going to be very dissimilar from our state government and have our only course of reaction to this potential being a federal or a state bailout. We need to be responsible to our taxpayers to the nth degree. Does that answer your question on the roundabout way? Chief?
Actually, the only other two I have until we get further into this would be the 205-336-735 000 and 736-000, which are the paid on call and full-time PPE purchases. We talked about that somewhat at the last meeting, and at after that discussion, I would say for right now, let's delete those two completely. And then what I've done.
You have an adequate amount then?
Well, no, what I've done is I've went ahead and I've already submitted since I received your email. Has submitted 2 grant applications totaling $7,000, which would buy that initial equipment that I need. And I told the guys at the meeting the other day, we'll just have to be as judicious as we can and make our year last full of spread year, because this is an unusual year. And hopefully this will be restored next year, that we'll make hopefully get those grants. That would give us an influx of that new year that I asked for. And that would, that will help offset the wear and tear on their structure over the year.
Okay.
If we get it, great. If we don't, we're operational. So.
And just for a point of clarification, Trustee Foley, since you were out of the room, page 10, Chief has made it onto page 10. The line items, the second and third from the top of the page, PPE, part-time or paid on call and full-time, complete reduction, 100% reduction of both GL, $6,000 and $2,000.
I was telling Mr. Lamp that I'm pursuing a grant avenue for any protective equipment or anything like that. That is about all I've done right now, which I think represents somewhere around 17,000. If we get more desperate or need to get into it further, I think I'm at a point. If you guys are following along, you see a lot of these line items I really don't have control over. But the ones I do, the last trick I would have up my sleeve is just to kind of do an across the board for those line items that have money left in them, do a certain, whatever percentage you would think prudent as a board with my input, like say like a 5%, 10%, whatever, just do straight cuts right across to try to get a little bit more out of there.
Okay.
So, yes.
On revenue, line of the annual fire inspection, I want to see how that's going. That, in addition to reducing expenses, we can try to increase revenue.
692.021 annual fire inspections, which was a contingent of you coming in. So I know that you've been in discussions with Mr. Malcolmson
Yeah, and to refresh your guys' memories, the mom and pop safety inspections that I would be required to do by code annually, those will not generate any money, thus a service of the department. When we're doing these inspections would be dependent on new construction and remodels.
Oh.
So for instance,
What about those that have fire suppression systems?
yeah, that's part of it. And then the example I was just going to give is like, for instance, last year, I believe it was Home Depot decided to pull out the suppression portion over the gardening section and rebuild that whole thing. That drew a permit, which provided funds that Kurt and Lynn do a good job of keeping track of what amount those are. Another one is Walmart did some fire suppression work with that generated, and then of course any new construction, anybody that's going to build when they're doing the permit process with Kurt, if is required by code to have any type of suppression, they pay dividend. That's where those funds come out of.
So there's not like an annual sprinkler system?
That was on.
Yeah, well, there is. So what we do is, like, for instance, if there was a new box store built out there, they would pay us X amount per, it's a certain dollar amount per sprinkler head.
Yeah.
And then per riser, because some of those buildings are so large, they'll have like 6 different riser systems, which will take days to inspect. So there's a set dollar amount. Well, they would pay for those. The next year, as I went back, that would be what I would call a courtesy inspection, where I would just make sure that those are being maintained. The only way we would charge them again is if they decided we're going to replace some sprinkler heads or rebuild some certain risers or branches out of the system. They're required by code to submit drawings to Kirk and I then. And that's where the fees come back.
Yes, Ms. Palovich.
I guess I have a question on the process. So if I'm putting in a new suppression system, I go to the building department and get a permit, and I pay them.
Yeah.
So how do we get that revenue to show up? But you're the one doing the inspection on it.
Well, Lynn sorts that out during you guys. I try to explain this like the cookbook thing. I'm one recipe in a cookbook that has 12 recipes. The other recipes are mechanical, plumbing, heat.
So what would that come under?
Lynn has a sheet that she can give the contractor that explains, or the architects when they're drawing, you're going to be charged, like $1.25 per sprinkler head for new construction, or you'll be charged 50 cents per head to replace. And she sorts that one. Then they would set down when they're writing the check, say for, because Meyer, like when Meyer came in, instead of writing like 16 different checks, they would go to the supervising contractor and say all these.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page, but
we're missing the piece where it gets moved over.
Divided out to show
public
that,
safety.
But my question is when you said that they have to buy X amount of sprinkler heads, that's not an inspection.
I have to inspect them before they open.
But how do they get billed for the inspection you did? You're saying Lynn does that?
That's during the permit process.
So we're missing a piece where they tell us that Dave's portion of this permit was $840. It's not getting moved over to your department.
Something to show Dave did these inspections on these dates, so we know.
So for point of clarification, I would like to see, so if you look to page 7 of the document, the budget document that you have before you, where we already have broken out mechanical, electrical, and plumbing as subcontracted aspects, what we should actually do in this page is also put in the GL that's already existing as a revenue line and put 205,336. Oops, sorry, no. Where was it at? Fire inspections. 292.0 69221.
Where are you at?
692,
Okay, so I went from revenue.
but it's not gonna go there because that's general fund. I mean, you're wanting.
I know, but we can also reference it. I know it's public safety, but that way there's a quick, easy reference point as to subcontracting. This is general fund. It wouldn't be colluded. There would be no commingling, but at least for tracking.
It would be an expense account we use to move the
To move money to.
over to the
That's,
state.
that's my.
That really makes sense.
Yeah, I think we need to do that.
So,
Yeah.
let's, I would entertain a motion, this is a side note, due to good conversation. I would entertain a motion to create an expense line in the building department to show the collection and the dispersal to the public safety fund for said inspections.
I would support, I would make that what you said.
For what kind of a?
An expense for GL expense for the
Collection
revenue,
and dispersal.
for, as we collect it. Because we're not saying, we're getting the collection aspect. We're not fully wrapping in terms of our budget,
Yeah.
showing your revenues for those inspections.
Right.
They're being encapsulated in the general fund in the building.
Then, well, I got a question back then is that if Lynn started sorting those monies out under that line item, would those go back into like fire department budget, or would it just stay?
It would go into the
General
fire
fund.
It
department.
needs to go to public safety. And so right now, we have a motion on the table. We don't have support.
Who made the motion?
Lappin. Do we have support?
I'll support it.
Support by Palovich. Further discussion. Do you have further discussion at this point? So yes.
I was just gonna say, because at this point, being kind of afiable about it, I was under the impression that when she was doing that, it might show that, say Kirk's office collected X amount of dollars in building permits, say for this month, 850 of that went in the general.
It's not broken out, unfortunately.
Was due to the inspections from the fire department.
No, it's not showing that.
The unfortunate, yes, Laura.
So also to be clear, we're talking about new construction and remodeling for an inspection. That's one part of it. And the other part of it is annual inspections.
Right, that's another part of the code.
So that's not, the annual doesn't go through them. So that's a whole
No,
separate.
And again, to refresh your guys' memory, way back when, and I'm thinking that was even the prior board maybe, or was it when you guys first sat that I suggested adopting the fire code?
It was in late 2016. Well, actually, no, it was early 2017.
My input was what is usual and customary across the United States for fire departments is that the annual safety inspections is that you don't procure a charge with that as people, the business owners pay their taxes, they expect that's part of the sort, because a lot of these, like the mom and pop shops, if you were to start even charging them, say $25, $50 an inspection, and I gotta inspect you every year, they're gonna come after you with pitchforks and torches. And so that is a byproduct of the code saying, look, as a courtesy, we're gonna come in once a year or twice every other year and inspect your building. However, if you do a remodel over 51% or you build something new, then there's gonna be cost incurred.
Laura.
So just to kind of compare a little bit, we have our fire extinguishers throughout here. And that guy comes, I don't know, he comes annually. Do we get charged for that guy coming here?
We pay him.
Yeah, you
So-
pay a contractor to do that.
So,
He's a businessman. He's running a business.
Yeah,
okay.
we're operating.
I'm just putting it out
And
there.
then that's kind
Like,
of,
hey, I'll just go.
yeah, play devil's advocate.
No, I'm just throwing it out there.
Let's say you own a gift shop downtown or here in the township, and we say, well, okay, by fire code, you're required to have those things inspected annually. Oh, and then by the way, 2 months later, the fire marshal or the chief's gonna come in and charge you another $25 to make sure that you pay the guy 200 to inspect your people get kind of.
No, it's fine. I just
So-
wanted to just understand that process.
So, yeah, we treat the annual or what we would call now frequently, because the code changes every 3 years. A lot of those businesses, they change from annually to periodically.
And is this a code we've adopted? Because it would have been.
Yeah, I have.
International, the
2015.
international fire code.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
And I appreciate all the insight, but I think we need to stay on task.
Yeah, so we have no further discussion. We have a motion and support on the table. Roll call vote.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Plavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll.
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel.
He's offline right now. He will be returning. He had a conference. So
Okay.
He
Trustee
requested.
Foley.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
yes. Okay,
And then you
My
will look,
second question,
yes,
on fire and gas non-emergency, we have a $5,000 line item there, we spent roughly $1,000 for 3 months, is that right? Michelle, this is a,
For the non-emergency?
yeah, I mean, to date, we've spent
Yes, we've
19%
spent-
of that, 20% of that budget.
Yes.
And since that time, haven't we made some changes to non-emergency? Have we effectively discontinued non-emergency?
effectively, yeah, other than the three patients, that we continue to do that meet the, what
Do
we
you see
call the
that,
central.
do you see that moving forward in the same format for the foreseeable future?
Well, I would hope to, because you know, not that they're readily available anymore, but the whole thing behind moving from diesel ambulance chassis to gas,
Yeah.
and then the subsequent drop of gas prices the last 2 months with price of barrel oil going down and stuff.
No,
I'd actually have to-
that way, but I just wondered if that meant that this dollar amount was modified. I mean, really, the $300,000, even if we cut it in half, we're moving in the right direction. But if it's not realistic, it's not realistic.
Yeah, no, and I shared the same thought with you, but the reason I left it alone is because I haven't crunched those numbers yet.
Okay.
So,
trustee Foley has.
Just one more quick one. Since we got down here for projected income of $160,000 for medical transfers, that's definitely going to be declining.
correct.
So that means the wages are going to have to be declining because they're not doing it.
For non-emergent transfers?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would, I would not argue that.
And also, and this has been a conversation I think that Michelle, myself, and Chief has had with points of clarification up until, and I saw your email where you've reduced a COVID standard of staffing.
Correct.
Because that's one thing where to really get a grasp of expenditures, to answer your question, that will be an agenda item is because we had a motion to reduce it by the recommendation of Chief, a standard of reduction of basically all non-emergency transfers with the exception of the 3 that we do for life safety till July 1st. That being said, we can revisit the non-emergency topic at our subsequent meeting, which is the 29th, and kind of reinvestigate where, as we look towards that first date, which direction we're looking to take. And also to kind of come back to where I started is our labor costs were what was really kind of starting to hit. We had, God bless you.
Thank you.
We had one fireman that was out on the workman comp scenario, and by our accounting and procedural aspects of staffing, that would account for 96 hours for one staff person. And we saw some irregularities in terms of accumulation of overtime, barring the aspect of PTO utilization, and or a huge, massive visual reduction in hours of non-emergency transfer hours to having where it should have been a linear capped 96 hours to offset that one individual not being there. we had 176 hours of overtime. So that's 80 hours greater than what we had. And that was kind of correlated back to a staffing quandary that has already been effectively addressed by chief. So that should also, in this next payroll period, see a dramatic decrease. Because non-emergencies aside, gas savings or the potential of gas at 20% as we sit here at 20, almost 25% of our fiscal year. These are anticipated reductions. And so that's why we have to look at this thoroughly and really look at the 29th and say, as a board and a fire department, especially this fiscal, what is our best approach to this? But I also agree with Trustee Kroll. We have been here and tasked to address a concern of budget amendments, and I say for timeliness. We've listened to the recommendations of chief at this point in time. Thank you very much for that. This will be a regular plus minus conversations throughout this year. So I appreciate your insight to your department and keep up the good work. Any other questions for chief before he departs? Thank you very much, chief.
Thank you.
So to get back to, we wrapped up our previous motion, correct?
Yes.
Yes. To get back to the business at hand, let's go back to page 2 and just work through. We have the recommendations at the total of $17,750 from our chief per Department 336. Michelle, do you have any numbers before we get too far into this department by department in terms of labor staffing, any other numbers that we've already saved? I know that we've got Blue Cross was a disbursement.
We're getting a discount on our next Blue Cross bill because they had so few claims in April and May. That's going to save us $5,500 across all of them. With having 2 employees laid off, our net savings a week per employee has been $385.28.
How much?
$385.28 per employee.
Times how many employees?
2.
Two.
And so they've been off 4 weeks in April, 5 weeks in May, 2 weeks in June.
So do we have a total to that?
So about 10 weeks.
Yeah, so that would be about, close to 8,000.
Okay. So currently with our 2 employees, we got 8 YTD. I'll let her return before we.
Hey, Nate,
Yes.
speaking of cost savings, do you want to kick me out?
Yeah, no, yep, hey,
No, not that, I don't mind being here, but I was thinking
No.
this is more done in the weeds.
Yep.
yeah, I think our primary business where I wanted you, in case any questions did arise for the board, were the first 2 items of business. So I do applaud your fiduciary considerations.
Okay, just if anybody's got any questions or anything, let me know, but.
Yeah. And then before you leave, you obviously know where 996523 North is standing. They're making considerations of moving the township. I did misspeak, so I did let her know that it's not a variance, it is a special use.
Ties into our right to farm, and farm animals in the residential area, and Nathan's been
Taking abuse.
doing it. Taking abuse, doing a good job. So,
Yeah.
saving money that way too, keeping us out of court.
Yeah, so hopefully we have a sound solution.
Yeah, it looks very promising.
So thank you very much, Mr. Gold.
You're welcome. Good seeing you. Ray.
Yes, take care.
Going out there.
Okay. So. Are you doing some quick math there, Michelle? Or what were you doing?
I'm just,
Okay.
in case I need it, I'm
Okay.
in here.
You got your tabulator, you got your abacus?
I got my abacus.
Wonderful. Okay, so what we've seen is roughly $8,000 year-to-date savings with our 2 furloughed employees, correct?
I'll double check. What did I say? 4, 5, and 2?
What's included in the savings?
So it's about 8,476.16.
So it's called 8,500.
And that includes Social Security, Medicare, and the John Hancock that we pay. We have been paying, pardon?
As it stands currently, correct.
We still have been paying their Blue Cross.
Yes, Norm?
We done with that?
Yes.
Why can't we take a crack at some of the bigger ones that we can hit some bigger numbers?
This is the big one. I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of a big one, don't you think?
What about like insurance overall? I mean, did you get a break on that?
Well, so we've discussed with labor attorneys all of our options as we look down the road at how we can look at things. We looked at what the state affords us as a work share program, what we're obliged by with working under the guise of FOPLC contract. I mean, we're a good employer, but we're doing our due diligence of dotting I's and crossing T's. We have some options because as much as I don't disagree, I know where we can look at some larger, easy 165,000. But these are the tougher decisions to make because a dramatic amount of our operating budget is labor expense. So, we have, as it stands, we have a good clarification in that conversation of, the federal $600 stipend goes until July 31st. So it's not a detriment to any employee that's currently not on the roster. So is it maybe a steadfast stance to just leave those two as it stands and let that play and add to a potential cost savings? But these are the tough decisions that we need to look at across the board. So.
And the health insurance.
And the health insurance. So, yeah, I mean, we've asked, and this conversation took place with Michelle, Laura, and myself, because we need to be on the same page, no matter what decision or avenue we look at exploring, and make sure that we're doing our due diligence. So do either of you have anything to add as to the conversation, or kind of hit all the marks that we kind of discussed of, the work share program is an opportunity that's available to us.
And I did run some numbers on that, like you asked me to. If we cut employees by like 10%, which would bring them down to 36 hours a week, actually, how much would our net savings be? For like Dana, our net savings would be $36.62 a week, which coming into my very busy time, I can't have her gone. So I don't want her put on unemployment at all. Rhonda's is the same.
Yes.
But can we cut separate employees, or do we have to cut them all?
Has to be by department. That is, and then we have, if we utilize the potential of that program, us as an employer have the task of a plan of attack for reentry to the workforce. That is what, by labor standards, was directed of us. It's by department and educational classification. It's not seniority based within our union contract. So it is solely by department. What you do for one in a department has to be across the board. You can't say, well, not in my department, well, in this department, or, well, not this person in this department, but the other two, okay. You can't pick and choose. It's by a department, or it's by no means offered.
Yeah, but you say by department. So the clerk's department could cut, but the treasurer's department, I said it backwards, the clerk's department does not want to cut because she can't, but the treasurer's department says, well, I can cut 10%. Can we do that?
Yeah, because those are two, in that theory, yes, because they're two different departments. That'd be the clerk versus, or, you know, if you want to look in building department or assessing, it's as grouped as a whole for that program. And just for discussionary purposes, like she said, she looked and explored a 10% reduction. It's minuscule, but the state pays, offsets that 10%. So they're still whole. And until July 31st, there's still that federal stipend as well. So they're more than whole, as I think the state's realizing the error of their ways of offering a gross amount in unemployment. 20%, if there was a 20% reduction, that takes a 40-hour, that would basically be a 4-day work week. So is that something, I mean, these are all the moving parts that we have to look at is, if social distancing is a concern, obviously, yes. To strengthen Michelle's point and to Laura's point with their staffing and their individual appointments are two of our primary legal obligations as a municipality. Elections, taxes. Our legal obligations don't even include a fire department. But our legal obligations are definitely an election and tax collection. So I don't disagree.
Have we explored looking at subcontracting assessing?
Long and short, yes. Long and short, and not just one department has it been explored, but two.
Yeah.
And actually, I stand corrected, 3.
Yeah, so I mean, if what we're going to do with the DPW, what we may do with the DPW, obviously will change our budget items.
Well, but there again, that's a misnomer because that's an enterprise fund.
No, but, yeah.
Water's totally
Yeah.
separate.
I don't know. I mean, I think let's start with what we can do, and we'll come back to the labor aspect.
Well, see, and I don't disagree with that train of thought as well, Cash. I do not, except for right now is the time if you're gonna make changes. This is by labor standard and practices, the time to look and explore it.
I mean, right now, if we.
It's hot, trust me.
But I mean, right now, for example, if we, we do have 2 furloughed employees right now, and we have been paying their health insurance. I mean, we don't know when the time would be to bring them back right now. So it's like, to be fair, we could pay their health insurance through the end of June, and then after that, they could get on with the COBRA plan or get on their husband's
But COBRA
insurance.
suggests that they're not coming back.
No, it's from what was told by labor, we're doing, we could have already offered.
We could have covered them.
We could have right out the gate.
We've already gone above and beyond.
We have been more than generous.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think we're going too far there. Let's try and get back to actually doing something.
No, I think that you're actually completely a little bit off. I think that right now is where we have these discussions.
This is huge.
Because this is, talking with 3 people that are here the most, this is probably the biggest issue that we face. And I don't disagree. Those are things that we may have to explore. I also don't disagree that, yeah, we can go right to the easy, low-hanging fruit because it's always hard to make hard decisions. But we're also appointed by our voting public to make those hard decisions. And if we don't really look at it realistically now, shame on us.
It's my understanding that this tax revenue sharing decrease is likely to be in place for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. No, in actuality, it's 4 to 6. Is that it's gonna, but at 2 to 3, maybe 4, that's when the paradigm shift may start coming back around to have an uptick.
Right, so,
We're even, before this pandemic, we were already looking at nearly, what, a $35,000 decrease?
right,
So, I mean, this was before the Department of Treasury even had to deal with state legislature and governor's decisions that have impacted their budget immensely. They're looking at a $6.3 billion shortfall. And they're calculating a 2 to 3 year shortfall.
right.
So they're going to pay themselves back before anybody else sees anything. Those are the realities. We all know this.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be terse or stern. It's always easy to make the soft decisions. But if we don't have good discussion now about where maybe some inefficiencies and cost savings may be, so that we can look and be as, first and foremost, our primary focus is providing a service to our community.
I think what Cass and Norm are really saying
Yeah.
is that there is, at least in my mind, one area that is a low-lying fruit
Right.
for the first year that I hope our budgeting of $250,000 for legal will be dramatically.
And once again, another misnomer. You're looking at legal and water department.
I understand.
So-
Well,
Yes, please. So, I mean, if we want to, let's hit 2 home runs, satisfy some low-hanging fruit. But we're still going to have to come back to this discussion.
So like for the board of trustees, so, I mean, literally, we could give up all of our training, any of that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that-
Right, like we could all give up buying new equipment and furniture. I feel like that just should be completely wiped out of everybody's budget.
I don't
mean, we're
just,
just gonna have to live with what we have this year,
we just make it.
unless it's an emergency.
so I mean, this exercise could be just that. I mean, we could say, because this is not going to be the last time that we have this discussion this year and subsequent years moving forward.
Well, if we go
So-
on, let's just.
I mean, we
You
can,
call yourself right now.
I mean, to be honest, if you want to say something just as easy as affording me the ability to make the amendments of reduction of furniture, everything that's ancillary, that's not needed for day-to-day operations, I'll do so and bring it to this board at the next meeting. Just to-
Yeah, that totally makes sense, or even you three, you're here, you know what's going on, you got the stuff, and you can come back to us and say, if we do all these things, we will save this, and we can say, hey, we agree with that, or no, we don't, or we'd like to see something different, right?
Well,
I don't think we all need to sit here and beat this little $5,000 here or $2,000 here
no,
down.
no, and I didn't want that to be the exercise. I wanted this exercise to actually look at low, deep considerations of how, because if there's a silver lining to this pandemic, it's efficiencies. And so we need to explore and how we can provide that level of service to the public. That's our primary goal, is providing a service to the public. As long as we're doing that and saving money, is that a bad thing? I don't think our taxpayers would think that's a bad thing.
Well, let me ask a couple, let's go off what Kat was just talking about. Let's just for a moment, go to the trustees line item.
Okay.
There are 2 large line items on there. One is legal and one is professional and contractual service. Now, I wonder sometimes if we have, why it's necessary for us to, at each meeting, have our lawyer present. Now, is there more often than not, he gives a very valuable service when needed. But if we have a board meeting that is going to be somewhat ho-hum, why do we need?
Yeah, and I don't disagree, and I've already implemented.
Oh,
it.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And Tim has said it before,
Yeah.
he's looked at the agenda and he's called me when you were available and said, do I really need to be there?
No.
And I'm like, no.
No,
And so does that mean that his time is reduced? That
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But we do have a certain number of hours we pay for each year.
yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. And so if we are judicious about that, then we can get our bank to the buck,
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
look at,
Even pre-pandemic, we've already implemented, like, hey, he's, both of us. I'm like, nope, don't need your services.
okay, great.
But today, and I should have been a little bit more proactive and said, hey, because I wanted them here for the first part of the meeting. I could have probably said, hey, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
So then the next one is the professional and contractual services. Remind me again what that contemplates.
Audit, CPA,
Well, any other services other than,
Other professional services have, all right.
yeah.
So are we historically in that area?
Well, see, what we did through the budget hearings is we actually tried to, and unfortunately, we had to break it apart because it didn't meet the uniform code. Is we tried to condense and keep things simple, which God bless simplicity, but the uniform chart of accounts doesn't honor the simplistic
But with,
methodology.
the state wants it by department.
Yeah.
but as I understand it, within that chart of accounts, we can open that line and go up into the break and it'll pull out a better breakdown or not? Oh, okay.
It's still, you have, each department has their own line item for professional services.
So they're in there. We've planted a seed. We have conversations active. We don't, Trustee Lappin opens the door of a potential. Cash, you understand it. You want to say, and I don't disagree. I think we've done everything in our power to be as straightforward and a wonderful place to work, especially in the last 4 years. Don't disagree with it. Some low-hanging fruit for this exercise, and I think that the way to go about this is that I will, if given the permission of this board, make amendments to bring to this board at a subsequent meeting.
Well, I think that that's reasonable because on the trustees one, from what I can really gather, there'd really only be about 4 line items there that we could probably tinker with.
Yeah, and so, I mean, here's 2 low-lying pieces of fruit to satisfy the general. So if you look at macro numbers, and this is where Trustee Polly and I have had discussions, is, okay, we have some primary macro numbers coming out of the general fund, of which you have roads is probably one of the largest funded at 300,000. I foresee a potential at least this year, if not extending into the next year and subsequently getting maybe back to a normal level, what I would consider normal, where it is currently, $100,000 reduction. Michelle's already extrapolated projects that we're involved with. We have a cost share program of upwards of $110,000, $670, where they match 50-50. So we still have a little wiggle room to do some projects.
Well, we had budgeted 300,000 and Michelle and I,
Yeah,
according to our numbers, we dropped it to 120,000.
Well, and I'm saying that, yeah, if you drop it, and we can discuss that, that's not a realistic approach to
Well,
dropping
we
it
still
down
have these
gross.
line items that we didn't fund,
Right.
that
We need
you
to put,
need to put money in, so
right.
Okay.
we
that's
need-
why we.
Even if you take 100,000.
So right there, 100,000. Building and grounds, we had capital outlay, $65,000. So there's $165,000.
So we're over halfway.
So I want to get something straight in my head. All right, the enterprise fund. If we have monies that we have essentially allocated to that department, and I'm talking maybe legal or whatever,
You're talking about the water department.
yes, but if we don't spend it, then that means we have more revenue, because we don't have, we have the same amount of revenue, but we just don't have the expenses, which means that we've essentially made a profit in that department.
Correct.
That money then goes where?
Stays right in water.
Stays in the water.
Stays in the water
It
department,
cannot
in the
be.
event that we need to do some construction or something.
Correct.
So that never leaves.
You cannot have commingling of tax dollars with an enterprise fund.
Gracias, amigos.
So, yes, Trustee Polly, I see your hand.
And just, I know we probably beat this horse to death, but we look at legal and professional contractor services that's scattered throughout all everybody's departments and everything. I mean, we are operating a township. We all have our issues, but why in the hell can't that be in just one functional spot?
As I previously mentioned, and as we went through the budget hearing and we tried to condense those, the Uniform Chart of Accounts in the state of Michigan will not allow you by auditing function to condense. They want it by department. So that's why I went back in, once we got the word from Jim and Chelsea saying, no, you have to, you can't keep things simple and straightforward. No.
Go on.
No. So then my suggestion is that I will bring back my recommendations
I like that.
of amendments, because we can nitpick this until the cows come home.
Well, do you want to sit down with Laura and I one day?
I'll
Because
listen to your recommendations. I think it would behoove me.
Are we
I'm not.
going to touch on the health insurance through July 1st?
I think at this point in time,
I think we should.
I just want to make sure that we're leading by example, so, we don't tell an employee, you're going to make these cuts, but ourselves, we're not going to make any cuts. You know what I'm saying? So.
I've said from day one, that if the 3% of a raise that I took in this last fiscal, if that 3% meant the betterment of our municipality and the fiduciary capabilities, there's no I in this team. It's whatever we need to do to operate, then that's our obligation to the taxpayers.
I know when Laura and I went through, we cut schools for our departments, we've got equipment, furniture, we cut our department just like we did any other.
To bear.
I think that's the right.
We cut, office
No,
supplies.
it's not like, well, we
We're
can
gonna
save
do
money.
it across the board.
No, I mean, it's gonna be my department, bare bones. I mean, I did buy a box of pens this year. So that's now the third box of pens in almost 4 years, just FYI.
Could you take a cut in that?
Caution a little bit.
I can give 2 back.
Insurance aspect of things.
Well,
Unless somebody on Cobra can get as good a policy.
Well, Cobra is exactly the same as what we have, if they were to Cobra it.
Okay.
If there's I think it's a 3% upcharge for administrative costs.
so to that end, I think that potential question needs to be a potential that should be discussed. I think that maybe you, Michelle, and Steve, with his knowledge of insurance,
I
maybe.
very little knowledge in health insurance.
Well, it might be just, his techniques, and you can throw something at him and you can bring duct tape. But that may be, because we do have, hopefully, we're going to have one more meeting before July. So maybe that's where we can do some more due diligence, because we're already into this month. So it
I'm
doesn't
just
make a
thinking,
bearing.
My only thought is if we made a decision today to pay through X date, give somebody some time to think about stuff versus days.
I mean, I guess are you looking at a huge savings of some?
What would that savings be?
Wasn't it $2,000 a month?
Yeah, for both employees, it would be $2,085 a month.
But they would still be covered under the code.
They would be paying
They
that
would pay that portion.
out of their own pocket.
But they're still getting.
Which would be a financial hardship. I mean,
Which
that's
would be a financial hardship.
But they're
because-
getting the extra 600.
until
the end of
August
July.
1.
Right.
So,
But that extra 600 almost just brings them up to their normal
Right.
wages. So this,
Right.
I mean, if I have a son, he had to start.
It's a
paying for my
financial
house,
hardship.
It's a
Do we
financial
know
hardship.
how much Cobra costs?
everything plus 3%.
Everything this plus 3%.
Oh. Could they buy
Hmm.
an individual health policy for that? People?
That would be for them to explore.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, it's an option.
Or what if they could get on their spouse's insurance?
Right.
And that's just a suggestion.
Well, it's a good one. So, all right, yeah, I mean.
So, I mean, let's-
ways to skin the cat.
I think maybe.
Well, I think it's something, just
No, it's a good
Let's
idea.
push it down.
push it down the road
Yeah,
right now.
I think at this point in time, it's a financial hardship. You can continue to have discussions, maybe come back to the board at our subsequent meeting, and if we need to, then we go that direction. And right now, I don't see it as being,
Do we know?
I don't think it's gonna make or break us right now.
Insurance Just because it's offered?
Pardon me?
Do we know if there are people that are taking the health insurance even though their spouse has it too?
Well, you can't under, shouldn't be, I mean, right?
yeah, you can't.
I know what we passed in the past, I mean.
I know there's like someone in the fire department whose wife had health insurance through the schools. So she got it through the schools. Him and his daughters were on ours. She is now retiring, so she'll be on ours, but
Do we pay people to not pay it?
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
$300 a month. That was
$300.
honestly, I think, the very first motion that this new board made.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, it just-
Wasn't it? The first motion?
One of the first, I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first.
Well, and like just for an example, and I'm just throwing that out there as a FYI, but, you know, like a husband and wife, the husband takes the insurance and the wife, they both work at the same place. The husband takes the insurance and then the wife gets in lieu of for not taking the insurance, even though they're covered under this insurance.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's just another example.
It's never a perfect scenario.
That would be something we'd have to negotiate in the contract.
That's a contractual basis here as an employer.
To thin this thing out, I agree with everybody that we as trustees don't have the general day-to-day knowledge that you guys possess. And so I'm perfectly fine with you being our eyes and ears to sort of find stuff, and then we can find truth.
Then I would entertain a motion with help and recommendations from both the clerk and treasurer to move forward with budget amendments.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, we have a motion on the
Recommendations.
Yeah.
Or
Been moved and supported. All those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel.
He's not on yet.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes.
Well, and they're not going to be final. I mean, the board's going to make the final decision. We're just going to bring recommendations.
Yeah, that's your motion.
Yeah. BSNA doesn't allow, I mean, I can always change it, but I'm gonna be putting them together.
Can't you do them manually and then say, well, I mean, like,
Well, we
sheet of
can do it
paper.
manually.
Well, yeah.
Say,
If you want me
this
to,
is what it'll be.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we'll,
thanks.
right.
It's
Then the board will approve.
I will help you.
twice as much work.
I know.
Anyways, okay. Yeah, it is what it is. We'll do what we have to do. So moving forward, yeah, thank you for having those tough, because there are some tough times. Anytime you look at financial impacts of anybody, they're hard decisions.
But I think the worst part is it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
No, it's always darkest before the dawn. So I love analogies. So Steve knows it. I'm crazy with analogies. Yeah. Yeah, so continuing on, amended new item business 9 is, I would like a motion to postpone our 22nd meeting to the 29th, 6 PM.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? I hate to do it. I've never left any meeting. I've only missed one budget hearing meeting, and I don't want to miss a single meeting in my tenure. And my little man needs me. So not that I want to be there. Pull it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Meeting or passed. New item number 10, Trustee Polly.
Yes, we have a piece of fire equipment parked at the very back of our our township hall here. It's the ladder truck and it's draped with tarps. And I understand that this piece of machinery is out of service and it's going to cost a ton of money to get it fixed. I suggest that this board dispose of that piece of equipment, and before it gets disposed, get it moved out to 32, our other station out there, so it gets it out of here And while they're moving that, they also moved that flatbed green truck that's been around there for umpteen times. It looks like a city dump back there. We need to make this place look better, and if we don't have a piece of equipment we're not using, get rid of it. I'm sure we're still paying insurance on that thing.
Probably.
So I make a motion that we dispose of the ladder truck.
And subsequently move both pieces of apparatus to the M32 station.
Yes.
What do we use the green flatbed truck?
We have a motion on the table. So do we have support? We have support by Kroll. Laura, your question?
I didn't know if that was part of the motion, that's why I was asking the question.
To move.
So,
To move the green truck, but I think there's some other issues with it, so they got to
So,
follow.
okay,
Get it out of here first.
Here's the 101.
So dispose of ladder, the motion is to dispose of the ladder truck and to move the green flatbed truck.
As well as the ladder and the flatbed to M32.
Is the ladder truck, does it have to be towed out there?
It would probably have to be towed.
Okay.
So I think you only have two operations locally that have the capacity to pull. It'd either be Jerome's or Georgie's have the big enough machines to tow. Jerome's is just on, yes, Norm.
I think we would want to make sure that that happens versus them trying to take it out there.
That would be a cost less than, I could make that just happen. Since now the board's acted with a motion to move it that way. That way you'll alleviate the opportunity for a non-insured and or a dangerous vehicle to be operated on the road.
Have we scavenged anything off of that?
It's already been picked over.
So there's, why did we have it? Is there any-
Okay, so here's a 101 on both. Ladder truck, the last time we quote from R&R to get it to MDOT serviceable standards, bare minimum standards for road safety, $21,000. Not cost effective. That's putting money at a $1 potato that we already send down the road. Green truck was a pipe dream of a free piece of equipment from Rose Lake MDNR station through our federal share program, free of charge, and that was going to be a conversion to a pumper tanker. Over a year ago, NFPA and the state of Michigan disallowed vehicle conversions of that sort. So it's no longer even an option to convert it. So maybe in a subsequent meeting, there would be a motion to send that back to Rose Lake because we're not utilizing it.
So can that be used in DPW or something?
No, because it has to be used in the fire service because they picked it up.
So on that, do I remember, and maybe you just answered the question.
Oh, I see it every time I take my
Can we
recyclables back.
dispose of that? Is that ours?
The green truck?
Yes.
No, we have,
That's what
that is an indefinite free loan from the state and federal government, but if we are not to utilize it, then that equipment needs to be taken back and or gifted to another municipality for similar or like services.
Okay.
Of which I don't know where a similar service would be requested because therein, the reason that it was brought to the north to begin with was to be converted and utilized as a pumper. Some things that will be addressed at the next meeting following the RFP will be a vast volume of discussion, but in the meantime, getting it out of here because it's knocking on the door of, I've threatened it for years, of sending ourselves a blight letter. And that's where trustees, and my frustration, I've been asking for over a year, too, that the ladder truck is no longer housed here. And it went from inside the building, literally to the east, 31 and a half feet tarp and left.
Yeah.
So now that people are starting to explore the baseball diamonds and there's something fun to crawl on, I know if my little guy could walk faster than he can crawl, he would be up on that. And that's a liability at this point in time. So I can give a call to Brian at Jerome's after a conversation with Chief. I know that the green truck is roadworthy, although at a subsequent meeting, there may be a motion that we send that back with regard to MDNR and say thank you. So
Can we get, just a suggestion, get a price between George's and Jerome's and see who's cheaper to tow it?
you want to call both?
I think you're gonna be cheaper there.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I just was
Just my
curious.
experience.
No, that's fine.
we get,
No, that's fine.
I mean, I don't really care. I'd rather just make one call and say, he's half mile, 1 mile down
Yeah, I
the
don't
road.
think they're gonna be substantially different.
Yeah. So anyways, so I'll talk with Chief before, we just
Are we
pull.
gonna vote?
Yes, let's do a roll call, because there will be a little bit of cost involved.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
trustee Dunkel, he's still moving. Trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes, treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes. This is the second opportunity for public comment. Bruce, or anybody by the public that is online or by telephone, if you have any public comment, please state your name and your address.
None here, thank you.
I appreciate your patience and sticking with us, Bruce.
He's laughing at me.
Nice sunny day.
Is there any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned at 1:26.